vehicles that we can use in order to grow the property market with South Africans, who are looking to do the same thing, which is build the nation. So let's talk about how you guys operate in terms of, do financial institutions and banks and other institutions that are financial portfolio managers and all of those, do they recognize Stokvels, and are they able to give you guys services that are for your unique needs and specifically to allow you guys to do what you need to do? Good evening and welcome to the Private Property Podcast right here on our Private Property Facebook page. It's 7 p.m. and it is a weekday, so that means you see me on your screens talking everything and anything property. If you are joining us for the first time, this is the podcast where we talk about investing, buying, selling, and maximizing your overall your property portfolio. So if you are joining us for the first time, thank you so much. And if you're joining us on the Twitter Spaces, a special shout out to you. Tonight, I have an interesting topic for us to talk about, because it's something that for some of us grew up with, but has evolved over the years to become something that is in the property space and that is making people money. So if you are a property investor or looking to enter the property market, maybe this might be the thing for you. I have, as usual, a guest who is going to give us insights and give us tips and tricks on how we can do this effectively. We are talking how to build a profitable property Stokvel. And I am sitting with Slindile Lisenyane, who is a property investor as well as a coach in the Sakisizwe Property Stokvel. Slindile, good evening and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening to me. Thank you so much.
I'm really looking forward to having this discussion because, I grew up in one of those places where every street has a Stokvel, but it wasn't specifically for properties. So today, I want us to talk about what is a property Stokvel, how does it look, how does it operate, and who can be a part of it. And I know that's a couple of questions in one, but let's just hit it and start talking about what it is and how does it operate.
Okay, so as we all know, having grown up in our communities, we all knew what Stokvels were as a concept, right? But each of them are unique in that they're characterized by the members themselves, what it is that they intend to achieve from participating in the Stokvel. So really, there are no two Stokvels that are exactly alike. I know that we sort of use the umbrella term of property Stokvel, but being in the space, I've realized that each of them are unique, they are different, because the members that join and the objectives for joining the Stokvel are different. So some people participate in a property Stokvel merely for the fact of, having that level of accountability of raising money together, and then that money is then used to put down a deposit towards acquiring a home. If you're a first-time home buyer, that provides that level of commitment and consistency with savings to achieve that goal. You may find another Stokvel, for example, where they buy each other building materials, and that way they then buy a material in bulk, and then they're able to build, and they even help each other with labor and all of that. And then you also then find, investment-focused Stokvels who say, we don't want to buy properties that we are going to live in. We want to actually accumulate properties for the fact of placing tenants in for an income. So no Stokvels are exactly the same. They are all different. The space that I primarily play in is the investment Stokvel, so which are different in that we are not acquiring property for the purposes of residing in them. We are merely investing and acquiring properties for profit or for income purposes.
Sure. Thank you so much. So tell us a bit about Sakisizwe and the property Stokvel that you guys have set up. You've already mentioned that it's for investing. Tell me how you guys started and what was the motivation behind it. We spoke a little bit off air, and you told me that you guys have almost 300 people who are part of the Stokvel. So that's a lot. How do you guys manage it? And going through the day to day, isn't it a lot to manage? Isn't it like a full-time job?
Okay, so the Stokvel started, with an idea that with the frustration that I had. I'm a property investor in my own right, and I had started investing in property, and I realized that I couldn't access certain opportunities because they required, more capital that I couldn't access on my own. And so having grown up in a community, in a family where Stokvels were the norm and they were common, and they were used for various reasons. So for me, it really was a no-brainer in terms of combining the best of both worlds, because I had already been playing in the property space. I already saw the benefits, and I'm obviously preaching to the choir due to the audience that's on this podcast, but we all know the benefits of investing in property or even acquiring property for residing in. So for me to combine, the best of both worlds, where with a Stokvel, we are able to raise a lot of money that I wouldn't be able to on my own. And so we then combine that with the ability to access profitable property opportunities. That was the thinking behind the start of Sakisizwe Property Stokvel, to say, how can we get more people involved so that we may be able to access bigger and better opportunities?
Sure, and I absolutely love the name Sakisizwe, because, indeed, you guys are building the nation. This is one of those vehicles that we can use in order to grow the property market with South Africans, who are looking to do the same thing, which is build the nation. So let's talk about how you guys operate in terms of, do financial institutions and banks and other institutions that are financial portfolio managers and all of those, do they recognize Stokvels, and are they able to give you guys services that are for your unique needs, and specifically to allow you guys to do what you need to do?
Okay, so Stokvels are an informal entity, if I can call it that. So they're not really a recognized entity, but they do have some certain powers in that they can enter certain transactions, right? Basically, the chairperson or the nominated person can then enter into certain transactions on behalf of the Stokvel. But so for example, we can purchase shares, unit trusts, and those kinds of investments. But where it relates to immovable property, like buying a house, whatever, unfortunately, as a Stokvel, we can't go and say, Sakisizwe Stokvel has bought this particular property. We would either need to come in as the individuals, collectively go and buy that property. So it gets a bit tricky, especially when you have a lot of individuals, in that just the nightmare and the administration of managing and getting a home loan, for an example, as a group becomes almost impossible. So it becomes necessary then, as a Stokvel, that you migrate and move on to a different kind of entity that will enable you to be able to access funding from the banks and traditional financiers. This means that you would either need to incorporate into a company or a trust. That way you then have access to funding from the banks. But the challenge comes in that, because, the Stokvel is made up of various individuals, the banks need to ultimately hold someone accountable for that home loan. So this is where it does get a bit tricky, and that is why you find that traditionally Stokvels tend to then acquire properties all for cash, because of the numbers involved and how that works, it becomes a bit difficult to be able to access funding. But once the entity is set up, either a company or a trust, it then becomes easy, because it is that entity that acquires that particular house, and therefore, selling the house or any managing it becomes easy, because there's an entity that is effectively managing that process. And so the leadership of the Stokvel then becomes, the executives or the people that run the company or the trust, depending on how you structure it, or you even can get external people that may have the skills that don't reside within your Stokvel to help you to run that particular entity that you've set up.
Sure. And what are some of the challenges that are associated with you guys setting up these entities? I mean, as we mentioned before, you guys have 300 people, 300 individuals, and in a traditional Stokvel, there would be a time where everybody gathers and there's like a sharing of money. So in this case, you guys can't really do that, because there's a lot of people involved. And with COVID and with all the restrictions that have been placed, how have you guys been managing this? Because there must be a level of trust, when these things are concerned. And a by question to that is that on the podcast not too long ago, we had a co-sharing or a co-ownership series where we spoke a bit about it, or episode rather, where we spoke about it. And one of the things that came out from that episode was that the most important thing is an agreement. So there needs to have a very solid agreement that details what everybody's responsibilities are, and the out clause that if somebody wants to leave, this is what happens. Just talk to us a bit on how the agreement specifically looks for the entity that becomes Sakisizwe, that now evolves into getting these properties or acquiring these properties. How does that agreement look, and how do you guys also manage the payments in terms of the return on investment? Because ultimately, when we invest, we want to be able to get returns, dividends, and us to be able to make some money. So please just talk to us about those two things.
Okay. So the first phase is in setting up the actual Stokvel. So you're absolutely correct. There needs to be an agreement which you then sign or enter into or co-opt into when you join a Stokvel. So it will specify things like how much do we contribute, what is the frequency, what happens if you don't pay, what happens if you exit the Stokvel specifically, right? So the second phase is when we evolve into a trust, and we operate both entities in parallel, right? So the Stokvel is still very much there as an entity, and we still have the trust as an entity. So the funds are raised within the Stokvel, and then once the Stokvel has identified a particular opportunity, those funds are then moved over into the trust. And so so there's essentially two agreements here. The one is what we call the constitution, which governs the rules of engagement of, if you will, of the Stokvel. Then we've got the trust. The trust itself has got its own set of agreement. We've got what we call a trust deed, which is a document that outlines the terms and conditions of how the trust operates, what happens, who are the beneficiaries, etc., etc. So that happens within the trust. So once the funds are in the trust and the property is purchased or whatever the case might be, then it runs like any other business in that it's got an income, it's got expenses, and then once the profits are available, they then get distributed. So how we manage all of this process is, fortunately for us, you know, we live in the digital age, and we're fairly comfortable with technology. We use an app which we use to manage contributions, to manage payouts, to manage people who want to join and exit. All of that is managed on the app. We also meet virtually on Zoom at least once a month. This is to cater for our members, which are all over the country, and now recently even South Africans who are outside of the country, are also coming on board and joining us. And so using technology like that enables us to stay connected and to be able to share information. So that's how we manage the process. We also are in a WhatsApp group where we communicate all the time with those who've opted to be in the WhatsApp group. So there's just that level of communication and being connected through those various platforms that I've mentioned.
You spoke about decision making being one of the biggest or a hurdle that you guys had to cross, and probably cross all the time, because there are always decisions that are being made. What are some of the other challenges that you guys have gone through and probably overcame, or some of those challenges that you guys are still working to overcome? Because the market is volatile. At different points in time there are different things happening. The interest rate has been going up. There was a time it was going down. Now it's going up again, and that causes fluctuation and movement, dynamics in the industry. What are some of those things that you guys are doing in order to make sure that you keep the investment profitable?
So we outline our investment strategy very well in terms of what are the opportunities that we enter into. So as I said earlier, that because we're a Stokvel, we tend to then obviously lean to more towards acquiring properties for cash. So we're not really exposed to the volatility of the interest rates in that regard. But obviously it's got its downsides in that we can leverage and what have you. But anyway, so that's the thing, that right? The challenge is that we need to wait until we have enough money to acquire an asset. We can't, for an example, just raise 100,000 rand and use that as a down payment on a R1 million house. We need to raise the full R1 million, which is unfortunate in that we cannot do that, functioning in the way that we are functioning at the moment. But it is definitely something that we are hoping to overcome at some point. Right. So that's just some of the challenges, in that we need to raise the money. We need to make sure that we find the right opportunities, and we need to make sure that we overcompensate in terms of analyzing the risk. We need to make sure that, for example, we look at multi-tenanted properties, because we don't want to find ourselves in a situation whereby we're finding one property that's got one tenant and that one tenant doesn't pay. We always want to make sure that we identify our risks, and we say, how do we mitigate this? And we involve the members in the decision-making process to say, guys, this is the opportunity that we've identified. These are the pros, these are the cons, these are the risks, these are the benefits. So when we are investing, we are all collectively, not only are we collectively raising funds, but we're also collectively learning about the property industry. So that is one of the big benefits of belonging to a network like Sakisizwe, is that you not only benefit from the income that you earn or the returns, but you also benefit from the collective knowledge that we are undertaking together. Recently, we've entering now the commercial space, so now we're having to learn about what is commercial properties, whereas previously we were playing in the residential space. So now we're all co-learning about how commercial properties work. So that is just one of the big benefits around that as well.
Sure. And looking into 2022, where do you guys see the market going? Just before we start rounding up our conversation tonight, where do you see the market going in terms of Stokvels? Do you see more Stokvels coming up? Do you see maybe even the financial institutions opening up their hands to or their hands to and services to you guys to say, listen, we are recognizing that you guys are doing something special in this space, and they're giving you service offerings? Are you guys approaching banks, approaching financial institutions to say, this is what we are doing and it's working?
So the property Stokvel market has been a big focus, especially from the financial industry, because there's so much untapped potential there. And I think they're starting to slowly come on board now and look at what are some of the solutions that they can offer for property Stokvels. One of the banks, for an example, is offering now a home loan solution where up to 12 people can actually go and get a home loan together. So us specifically as Kisuza Property Stokvel, one bank has actually approached us to say how can they provide home loan solutions for our members. So our members have got a dedicated banker at one of the banks, and all our home loan solutions are taken care in that way. So they're slowly coming on board and saying, how can we meet you guys halfway so that we are able to provide solutions. But obviously this is still a new space, and so obviously the banks are going to be cautious and they're going to slowly come in until they understand it a lot better. I know there's been a lot of research as well that has gone into the space within the private sector as well as in the academic spaces. I get invited to participate a lot in this research, so I know that there's a lot of research that's going in, and obviously on the other side it's to find out how can they provide better solutions for us. And so also my role as a coach, even within the property Stokvels, I'm seeing a lot of Stokvels now, not only going into property, but also other, businesses or opportunities like farming, franchising, hospitality. So they're now thinking beyond just, the traditional Stokvels that we know, which are just grocery Stokvels or funeral Stokvels, and now going into actually investment-focused Stokvels that are actually going to generate an income for the members.
I think definitely if the objective is clear, the model works. If the objective is clear and there's good intentions with the people who run it, then it definitely can be profitable and can work. I mean, it's worked for generations, and that's the reason why a lot of people are now deciding to evolve it and bring it into the property space and into the different spaces that we see ourselves having these days, where we can take advantage of. So someone is sitting at home tonight who's a property investor who wants to go into a property Stokvel or wants to start one. Someone wants to come into the market and be in a property Stokvel. What is your advice? What are the steps that they need to take tonight as they're watching us? What can they do? Actionable intelligence for them to be able to do from tonight in order to either start one or join one.
I think you mentioned the key point that you said that if the intentions and the objectives are clear. So in order to be clear on what it is that you want, you need to have the right knowledge, because a lot of people go in and just say property, but they don't even understand, especially if you're looking at it with the investment focus. So you need to understand that now you are an investment Stokvel, and you need to make sure that when you are buying a property, it is an investment grade property. Never mind the fact that you're buying it cash, but the fundamentals still need to be there. It still needs to make sound financial sense for you to be able to invest in it. So that comes with having the right level of knowledge. So the knowledge would be the first thing that you would need to get. You would need to understand if you are deciding that property is the asset class that you as a Stokvel want to invest in, get yourself a property coach. I provide coaching services around, making sure that you are making the right investment decisions. You are buying the right properties that are right for your particular group and your Stokvel. And you need to make sure that, your Stokvel is solid. It runs smoothly. It's got all the things that are in place that need to make sure that it runs accordingly, like a constitution, like a contribution management system. All of those things need to be in place before you can run a Stokvel, because otherwise then you may just run into trouble.
Sure. No, thank you so much for that. And I'm sure that a lot of people sitting and watching us right now are already convinced that, where do I sign up? I need to start today. Any last word of advice in terms of how you can make it profitable, how you can make it work, and to all categories of players in the property industry?
So understand what you're getting yourself into, especially if you're joining like a public Stokvel, where it's people that don't know each other. You know, you need to just do your research and due diligence so that you don't end up, you know, losing your hard-earned money. So definitely, you know, do your right research. And I mean, property can be very profitable when done right. So make sure that, you know, you surround yourself with the right people and you surround yourself with the right knowledge so that you may be able to realize your investment objectives.
No, definitely. And if anybody has questions and things that they would like to ask or want to get in contact with you, where can they contact you?
They can contact me on my email, hello@meetselindile.com. That's hello with HELLO @meetselindile.com. Otherwise, I'm on Facebook and Instagram as Selindile Lisiane, as well as Twitter.
Thank you so much for joining us, man. I'm really encouraged. I'm inspired and motivated already to, you know, to look for a Stokvel to join because wow, the way you've given us information and those examples, really appreciate you coming through tonight and really giving us that knowledge. We really appreciate it and have an absolutely beautiful night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that is how we wrap up the show tonight. So the Stokvel works, guys. It is not a fly by night, and it will definitely, if done right, if with the right intentions and clear objectives, it will definitely be profitable. So if you're a property investor, if you're someone who wants to get into the property market, this may just be a way for you to explore to ensure that you can start that property portfolio or increase it. Till the next time we see you right here on the Private Property Podcast every weekday, 7 p.m. My name is Dumi. Have an absolutely beautiful night.